Yeah, I've been covering a lot of themes lately online. Talked on some of Jacob's streams. Did a was on the Friday Q&A with Paul Vanderclay, talking about tolerance, and just did a stream with Father Eric. That was fun. Talked about a lot of those things and some other stuff. And I was thinking more about this idea of dogmatic thinking and where this comes from. So from an outside perspective, sort of what happens is a bunch of Christians get traumatized by this, the church being dogmatic, right? And you talk to them, and you find out in their stories that, not all the stories, but like almost all the stories, the church wasn't being dogmatic. The pastor or the priest or the bishop or whatever wasn't being dogmatic. The passage in the Bible wasn't being dogmatic. People they were around, particularly, usually relatives or important friends or whatever, maybe they were being a little dogmatic. But most of the dogma seems to be projections that they had. And I was like, well, that's weird. Why would there be projections of this, dogmatic life where, if you strayed from the church, they burned you like a witch or, whatever nonsense they're on about. And it really is nonsense. I mean, it when you dig into the story, you just hear a totally different story. Like it bears no resemblance to dogma. Which is not to say it never happens, but it just seems like there's an awful lot of people who have this projection of dogma that didn't happen. And I'm like, well, where did this come from? But I think actually it is fair and safe and reasonable and correct to blame the scientific thinking revolution, right? Because the problem with science is that science strives to be accurate and precise, right? And it needs those things. It needs accuracy and precision to work. It also needs to be consistent and reliable. Because these are the four big properties of science. Now, the accuracy and the precision are more important. So what ends up happening is that creates the dogmatic thinking. So the dogma is not in the church. The dogma is not in the Bible. The dogma is not in what the preacher said or whatever it is. That's not what the dogma is. Right? Dogma is the unhealthy relationship between you and something that you basically need to orient with or through, right? So in the tradition, from what I understand from Father Eric and others, dogma is like lights lighting a path. You need the lights to light the path, but you can't stop and get stuck at the lights. And this theme shows up all over the place. It's in Tolkien. Like, don't stare at the lights or something, right? When Frodo's in the marsh with Gollum. Yeah, don't look at the lights. Like, you move past the lights. You use the light. The light is a guide for where to go. It's not a goal for where to stop. And when you treat the light as a goal for where to stop, then it becomes dogmatic, right? But the thing that's dogmatic is your thinking, your relationship to it, not the light. The light's not dogmatic. It doesn't have that quality in it. It has that potential with it, but that potential is only manifest in your relationship to it. And so it seems like, the more certainty, the more scientific certainty, the more precision, the more accuracy that people were convinced of in the world. Like, oh yeah, the world's just full of all this accuracy and precision, and we can be accurate and precise about all these things. And maybe that's true, but maybe we can't. Like, maybe it's wrong. Also, maybe we can be accurate or precise about one or two things at a time. And therefore, it's not all that useful in the world because all the rest of the things you can't be accurate and precise about at the same time. So things unfold. Things don't unfold singularly, right? They unfold over time. So it's not particularly useful in most circumstances to be able to be accurate and precise about only one or two pieces because there's so much other stuff going on. Now, there are exceptions to that rule for sure. But maybe science has found all of them, for example. All the low-hanging fruit is gone. That's possible. I don't know that that's true, but it certainly looks that way all of a sudden, at least within the past like 5-10 years. It looks like science is just losing steam. The things that we used to think were good and easy and big hits seem to be over with. The big whopping innovations, innovative conclusions, I should say, from science seem to be coming at a much slower pace. And they seem to be much less. So, like the certainty you can have about, we'll say, the nature of gravity versus the certainty you can have about the nature of emotions. Doesn't seem like we're making much progress on the emotion side. Seems to be getting worse, not better. Right? The certainty we can have from the point, we'll say, I don't know what it is, 10 nanoseconds after the Big Bang versus the certainty that we have before that point, right? And then you stray into string theory, which is obviously unhelpful garbage, right or wrong. Like, doesn't say string theory is definitely right. Yeah, okay, but it's useless, so I don't care. Something that I can't do anything with or about or validate, not useful. Or interact with, right? Like, not useful. Or understand, not useful. So at some point, we fooled ourselves into thinking that most of the world can be divided up scientifically, can be thought of scientifically, can be dealt with in an accurate and precise fashion. And then we're projecting that out. So now we're expecting that everywhere. So when you go to church, if that's what you're expecting, I mean, you can see it there. That doesn't mean it's real. Or that it's significant, or that that's what's actually happening, because we often fool ourselves. But you can see it there for sure, no problem. And I think that's what happens to scientific worldview in some sense, because of its implicit promises, and in some cases explicit promises, has driven us to a certain insanity around logic, reason, and rationality, and precision and accuracy. That this is an attainable state, and it is a desirable state, and it is a state that we should pursue and look for everywhere. And that's really led us astray. And it's part of what's ripping apart the religious tradition. And I think that's an important pattern. It's a pattern that I'm seeing in the world. I hope that you're finding these little videos helpful. And yeah, I mean, it's just my thoughts for the moment.